Cinema 4D. I've chosen Cinema 4D over the others, Maya or 3ds Max, because I think it is friendlier and you get somewhere easier. So all we want to do is we want to create stuff in 3D space. So that should be what you see when you start the program. Now, as I said, we want to create stuff. So there are lots of buttons that you don't need to know yet. Whenever it is blue, it means it is on. If you hover over things, it'll tell you what it does. If it has little triangles there, if you press long, you have several choices. On, off, and so forth and so on. And let's create something. So there are two ways of creating what's so-called primitives. They are primitive solids like cubes and spheres and so forth and so on. Here we've got a disk and a plane and a cube and a cone and a polygon, an oil tank and a figure, which is actually not quite so simple, but let's just call them primitives. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is maybe a plane, because nothing ever lives in space doing nothing. And on that plane, by the way, here we go, let's zoom in here, zoom in, and now it disappeared. So with left mouse click we can toggle around. Okay, here with this one we rotate, so left mouse click and keep it pressed and then just move left and right. And there we have our four views, the top view, the right view, the front view, and as you can see nothing because there is literally no height to it. So let's go back here, click on that one again, and now let's bring in some more things, some more primitives. For example, the cube. The cube is huge. Here on the bottom right you see the attributes, and let's just bring that down maybe to 50, tab 50, and that's more like it. And now let's bring this up. So there's our little gizmo, which tells you that's the x direction, the x axis, the z axis, and the y axis. Now x, y, as you know it from a coordinate system. So if you drag on that handle on the green one, so left mouse click, you can move it up or down. Now it's below the plane, now it's above the plane, and it's hovering as well. If you also hold the shift key, it'll go in increments of 10. So because it is 50, half of it would be 25. So we can either have it hover or be a little bit buried. Okay, let's bring that out a little and push that away, because by default it is creating all those primitives at 0. Now let's create a torus knot. Ooh, that's a big one. So let's bring that down a little bit. Here we can change the diameter of the actual ring, and here, down here, we can change the overall diameter. Okay, so that orange button there, that's what we're doing. So that's the inner one, then the other orange one is the outer one. Oops, there's the outer one, inner one, and let's move that out of the way as well, and let's bring it up. Okay, let's have a look what else we've got. What other primitives there are. So the sphere, obviously. Okay, that's also a little bit big, so bring that down maybe to a radius of 20. And right now you can see the edges, and you cannot see the vertices, but wherever edges cross we have a vertex, and we can switch that off in the display settings and just say grow shading. And now we don't see any of the edges anymore. We do see the grid, which can be switched off, but we don't want that. So right now let's switch that back on, the display setting, and put the lines there and have a look what the different types are. So here we have a tetrahedron, so it gives us triangles, and then we can have it as a hexahedron where we have rectangles, which is very important because rectangles is the preferred shape of things in 3 dimensions. Octahedron, and we can have an icosahedron, and we can have a hemisphere, which is just half a sphere, or we have the standard one. So let's switch that display off again so it looks a little bit nicer, and bring in some more things that we can do. A capsule, for example. There's a capsule, wonderful. Let's bring that down to 20, and let's bring that down to 100 maybe, and bring that up and out of the way. So that's important. That so if I only grab that handle, I only can move it into the X direction. If I grab these two, the green one here, I can grab it in the X and the Z, but not in the Y. And if I grab this one, I have the combination of these two, and so forth and so on. So let's see what else we've got. We got a figure. Okay, so that one is 180 high. Let's turn that around a little bit so we can see it. It is the so-called T position. Very important when we are animating. Then we have a tube. Oop, that's a big tube. So let's bring that down to 20 and maybe in a radius of 5 and the height of 50. Oh, that looks more like it. So there's our tube. And get that out of the way as well. What else have we got? Sphere, tube, oil tanks, platonic. They are quite nice. So they are named after Plato. And let's bring that down to 20 maybe. And have a look what we got. And you'll be surprised what wonderful things you can make with very, very simple geometry that is based on those. So icosahedron, tetrahedron, which is just a pyramid, hexahedron, which has 6 sides, hexa means 6, octa 8, that's what we know, that the diamond shape, dodecahedron, icosahedron, and the bucky. So all these things we can create very, very easily. Let's see what else we've got. Zoom out a little. Okay, what else have we got? The relief. Oh, the relief is funny. As you can see, there's nothing there. It needs a bitmap as an information. And I just brought something in, and you can do that later on as well. And that is, where is it? So there's my Finder. And I put them in the Dropbox, and I just put them in. So the first thing that we're going to bring in is something which difference clouds. You can see an image here in a minute. It's asking you, do you want this to put in your path? And we're just saying yes, whatever. Look at that beauty. So we've just created some mountains and valleys, and which we can then smooth out. It almost looks like waves, like an ocean. Okay, so bring that down a little bit so we can see all the other things that are part of our scene. So that's one thing, but now the good thing is you can make this spherical. Ooh, I really like that one. And bring up the height a little bit because we want to see some of the relief. And we've just created a blob. A very good looking blob. It's not very good at the poles because it's crumbling the texture together. Here on the bottom right you can see what it really is. And now let's bring in something that looks a little bit more recognizable. Yes, we want that in our path. And here we got a spiral of a gradient. And look how beautiful what it created. I'm loving this. Looks a little bit like a hand grenade, I think. And it's so easy to create shapes just based on a bitmap. So bring this down maybe 200 and 200 again, and obviously we need to adjust the height, otherwise the profile is a little bit too high. And if we don't want the spherical, all we get is a pool, the staircase, just what we had before. Let's bring this up so you can see everything. So let's make this spherical again and bring it out a little bit out of the way. So I'm using the Alt key and the left mouse button that lets me do the same thing as this bit here, and the Alt key and the middle mouse button lets me do the same as this one here. Let's bring that out of the way a little bit. Oops. So again, these ones are scaling buttons which you can use rather than putting down the values there. Okay, bring that out of the way a little bit, and I think that is possibly all the pyramid. So we can recreate the pyramids of Gizeh straight away. Remember the shift one where we have then things snapping into steps of 10. And one more thing is, if you go to create, you can have all the objects here as well. So what I really want to do is create an environment, a floor. Because if we render this, rendering is just simply asking the computer how would that look like with light. So if we hit that render button here, it'll render this, but nothing will go beyond our plane unless we change the size of the plane. So let's just go here, all the things that we've just dragged into the scene on the right hand side, and let's just grab that plane and press delete and put in an environment, put in a floor instead, because the floor will render to infinity. Let's do that again. Oh no, that's a bit hard. There we go. That's it. If we render that again, you will find that the floor continues beyond. It has no end. It's infinite. Okay, so right now it's just all boring and gray. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to create some materials or some textures. So we are down here, and we can create a new material, which is rather boring because there have been some shaders for us already. And let's just pick this one, and you can see here a preview how it looks like. It looks like a blob of grass. So now let's just click in here, select all of them with Control A, and assign the material to it. You just drag it, simply drag it on there, and have a look what's happening if we render this. Okay, let's just render this out, and you'll be surprised how quickly you can get something that looks rather stunning. So that takes obviously a little bit more time because it's calculating all the lights and how they fall onto something, and my computer is about 10 years old, so that doesn't help either. But look what we got. We got this beautiful glass imitation material. And all we have done, it takes into consideration reflections, light, how glass would behave, and it's all there at a mouse click. Well, that's the end of the beginning, and let's do something